Hello and welcome to today's webinar on improving workflow automation using Nintex forms. My name's Philip Scott from Brennan IT, and I'm joined here with Pavel Newsel, also from Brennan IT. He's our Sharepoint and Intex consultant. Done a lot of work on that environment. So thanks for joining us, and let's get stuck straight in. So the agenda for today is first of all we're going to cover the current business process challenges, some of the things we see out in the world when we're talking to clients, the challenges that they face. A quick introduction to the Nintex platform. We're going to discuss a couple of the real-world applications that we've worked on, and then I'm going to hand over to Pavel, and he's going to do a demonstration for you, and then we'll have a Q&A session. Now, as we're going through, if you've got questions, please make sure you use the chat session that should be on your screen there and send your questions through. They'll be collated by our team here at this end, and in the Q&A session we'll do our best to answer them. If we can't, for any reason, we run out of time or something, we'll post them on our website on the blog, and you'll be able to get those answers then. And then the final item that hopefully you're all excited about is the special offer we've got, and we'll tell you how to access that special offer. So let's dive in. So some of the challenges we see that businesses face as they're trying to automate the processes between people and content is that just about every business has working professionals, information workers, and they're really hungry for access to content. They really need to collaborate to get their jobs done, and more often than not, there's at least some aspect or some portion of the workforce that is distributed across multiple branches and offices, or actually a mobile, a field-based workforce. So how do you bring all these things together and give them, enable them to efficiently go through their processes, all the processes that every business has? And they range from the simple, they range to the more sophisticated, and they can be approvals, leave requests, all sorts of things. But often they're, in businesses, they're manual and they're siloed. So with the manual processes, they can be word-based documents that need to be printed, signed, scanned, and attached to emails. And all this takes a lot of time. And what we find is the everyday processes, the processes that are happening in businesses every day, multiple times, across the country or across the globe, really chew up a lot of time. And that's where the inefficiency comes in. And then the other aspect is to complete these processes, the content often comes from a range of different areas. Whether it's other systems, whether it's structured data in databases, in Excel spreadsheets, whatever, on-premise or in the cloud. So how do you bring all this together? And that's really what the challenges that organisations face, and really what the Nintex toolset is all about. So the Nintex toolset brings it all together, and that's the beauty of the platform. And it's a platform that lives on Sharepoint. So if you've got the Sharepoint, whether it's on-premise or online as part of your Office 365 subscription, the Nintex has these toolsets available. And what I'm going to cover now is a bit of a brief introduction into the Nintex Workflow Automation platform. Now, this toolset is essentially the gold standard for workflow automation on Sharepoint. It's used by millions of users every day. It's used by thousands of companies across, I think, 90 countries. And one of the great things is it's developed here in Australia. So it's a great Australian success story. And now they've taken it and conquering the globe. But let's have a delve into the components. The four major components are the Nintex Workflow, which is really where the business processes are quickly and easily created. You'll see from that picture, hopefully it's large enough for you to see, that's a drag and drop user interface, and in the demo you'll see that later on. And then once you've got your workflows, and you need to create forms so people can enter data and initiate a workflow. And this is can be easily published into multiple form factors, whether it's into your laptop, your desktop computer, an iPad or an iPhone or a Windows phone. It doesn't really matter. So it can be published into multiple form factors so you can use it out in the field. And then the Nintex Live connects you through to all the different content, whether that's on-premise or in the cloud, and also has a great trick for those people that have SharePoint on-premise and haven't published it to the internet, but still want to use Nintex forms to collect data and initiate workflows. You can publish it through to the internet using Nintex Live. So it's a great way to securely gain access to all the functionality we're talking about without having to publish SharePoint through to the internet. So it's a really good aspect there. All right, so let's have a little bit of a quick overview of some of the real-world applications that we've worked on. So we're an Intex partner at Brennan IT, and we've done lots of work in this environment, and we find the customers really love it because it's a much quicker and easier means of creating workflow and online forms and updating it and maintaining it in the long term. And some of the different sort of applications we see is logistics type companies. So if you're a logistics company with hundreds of drivers out in the field every day, things happen, unfortunately. Whether it's a little bingle or an accident, whether someone might get hurt or goods that are in transit get damaged, they typically have to go into forms. Then when the driver gets back to the depot, then the depot sends it through to head office, and a week later you might get the data, someone has to type it up. So a much quicker and easier way is to have a mobile app. There you take a photo of the incident, fill out a few fields on the form and hit submit. That's a great application for the things we're talking about today. A local council, we're doing field-based quality checks and data collection. Oil and gas multinational, contracts approval workflow and database. A not-for-profit, large not-for-profit, the procurement approval workflow, and that integrates into their financial system, so it posts the transaction when it's ready for payment. A food processing organisation that has a very detailed new product development process that they wanted to make to improve their quality and of the process to ensure things don't get missed. They wanted to automate that. And then you have all the traditional HR type forms and processes. So there's some of the real world examples that we've dealt with over the years, and there's many, many others. So at this point in time, that's enough of an introduction. I'm going to hand over to Pavel, and he's going to run through a live demonstration for you on the Nintex platform. So just a moment.
Thank you, Philip. Hello, everyone. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I just want to show you 3 things about using combination of Nintex Workflow and Nintex Forms. So the 3 aspects of Nintex: it's easy, it's powerful, and it's manageable. So what I'll do, basically, I will show you one of the typical examples, which Philip touched earlier, is one of the HR requests, and we'll go through leave requests. So here we are in a traditional SharePoint side, and I will access the leave request list. So this is a traditional SharePoint list, and first of all, I will walk you through the Nintex workflow. And in the next section, what we're going to do is we're going to transfer or transform this leave request into an Intex form and make it a bit more advanced and capable. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll just quickly submit a new leave request. So I've got some predefined SharePoint list here. We'll provide some details for the leave request as a start date. So we'll do it for a week, and off we go. So I'll just basically submit the leave request. So now in a real scenario, what would happen, the workflow will automatically kick in and it will go through all the actions. So what I'm going to do and what I want to show you, I'll just start the workflow manually and I will walk you through some of the actions within the workflow. So while the designer loads, so this is our pre-developed Nintex workflow for the leave approval. And now we can see the diagram of all the actions within the workflow. So I'll just scroll down for you so you can see all the actions within there, and I'll just quickly walk through the actions. So this is fairly simple workflow. It's a traditional HR request, but Philip mentioned some of the other processes like a contracts database or the new product development. These are pretty fairly complex workflow. However, all this is achievable without actually writing a piece of code. So it's all using a drag and drop functionality plus configuration of each of the actions. So back to our leave request workflow. So what happens once the workflow starts? So in the first action, we need to retrieve some information about the user. So we'll get the username and who is the manager. We'll need the manager property later down the track when we send a request to the appropriate manager for the approval. In the second action, it's basically just to keep the list consistent. So we update the title of the leave request to make it consistent within the list. And in the third action, we basically send a notification to the requester. And in the fourth and fifth step, there is some calculations happening behind the scenes. So we need to understand what the leave balance of the requester is and also calculate the days for the leave. And in the next step, in the crucial step, is the workflow sends a notification and a request to the manager requesting for the approval, sorry, for the leave request to be completed. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll just start the workflow, and based on the decision of the manager, you can see if manager rejects the request, it just basically sends a notification to the requester that has been declined and with some details around the decline decision. If approved, so the leave request is added to a calendar, which we have got on the HR side, and then update the leave balance and sends notification to the requester that his leave has been approved. Sorry. So I'll just start the workflow. So the notifications can be sent not only via email, but it can be sent via SMS or instant messaging if used within company. So via, for example, here we're using Link, or the new name of Link is Skype for Business. Okay, so we should be receiving a notification soon. Okay, so you can see this is our new leave request. The workflow is basically has started behind the scenes, and it should take a few little moments to receive the notification. So here we can see in our inbox there is a notification to the requester. Also, notification went out to the manager where he can approve the request. So there is a few different types how the manager can approve the request, and that is the traditional. So you can either go through a via browser and submit and approve or reject the leave, or Nintex Workflows cater for something called lazy approval. What that means, when the manager receives the request, he can just basically reply to the email and type in approved. Also, we can provide some comments, and once the manager sends the email back, the Nintex workflow engine will pick up the email, will understand the first word, and will automatically approve or reject the workflow. So that's a pretty good functionality when, let's say, users are outside of the office and they are on their mobile devices and don't have the functionality to click and type in, so they can just basically respond to the email. So it's a nice, easy way of approving those sort of requests. Okay, so that's the workflow. What I'll do in the next step is I will show you how we can change the traditional SharePoint list into Nintex forms. So again, same like the Nintex workflows, the Nintex form seamlessly integrates with SharePoint. So when designing new Nintex form, we do not need any third-party tool. Some of you may have heard of SharePoint Designer or Info Platform Designer, which are additional tools you need to have to be able to design such things. So here it's all seamlessly integrated. It's a very funky drag and drop functionality based on using HTML5 latest technology. Here we can see the design layout has been on a canvas, so it helps you when designing the form, make it nice and user-friendly. Nintex forms cater for the traditional SharePoint fields. On top of that, Nintex forms can handle manage metadata type of fields and geolocation. The manage metadata is very important in these days, while information taxonomies are becoming fairly complex in most intranets, so it's very important that the Nintex forms can cater for such a functionality. Okay, so I will just cover some of the basic settings. So while you start designing the new form, you don't need to be worried about making mistakes or whatnot. There is a undo and redo functionality. There's also version control. So if we click on versions, you can always, obviously there is no versions at this stage, but if I make a little change and save the form, we can always revert back to the previous version or the version you need to be in. So you can see now I've created first version, and whenever you save the form, a new version gets created and you can always roll back to the previous version. Also, when you design and complete the Nintex form and it's ready to go and be published to the production environment, there is a great functionality of importing and exporting Nintex forms as well as workflows to your production environment. So once you test your Nintex form in your test environment, you just export it from the dev and import it into the production environment. So that's a really good functionality as well. Also, I'm not going to walk through the whole ribbon, but some of the settings within the form we can do is, obviously here you can work with the dimensions of the canvas, some of the appearance features like changing background, fonts to make it consistent within your branding. Also, there can be used, if you prefer, custom CSS or custom JavaScript, but that's probably for advanced forms. Okay, so I will cover also layout. So this is a typical layout for a web-based form. However, we mentioned there will be users outside of the office using smartphones or tablets. So Nintex form caters for that. So I'll just show you some of the different layouts. So I will just show you the smartphone layout. So you can see it has adjusted to be user-friendly for smartphones. The other devices are for tablets. So I'll just select one for iPad. So within just a single click, you can fairly easily change the layout without needing to adjusting the width and all that. So it's already pre-developed to be user-friendly for those sort of devices. Okay. All right, so the next thing I will just show you, we touched the drag and drop functionality. So I just want to quickly show you how easy that is. So this is our leave request form with the predefined field. So what I'll do, I'll just quickly create a new column and basically drop it on the form and then just publish it back to the SharePoint. So you will see how easy that is. So I'll just quickly move my submit and cancel buttons. This form. The next thing what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new column called number of days, for example. Days. We'll select as a number type. OK. So once we create a new column, it will automatically appear in the toolbar. So if we click on the list columns, you can see this is my new column I've created. So now I can literally drag and drop it on the form. OK, so to make it consistent with the rest of the form, I'll just copy this class. Now just put it in the proper place. And also we need to add a label to the form. Again. Make it consistent with the rest of the form. Okay, so that's our label. And we'll just need to link it to our column. So at this stage it's not connected. And we'll just format it. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So that's fairly easy to add a new field, and also we could possibly change the background of the form. So just make it a little bit darker. Okay, we'll save that. Okay, so the next thing what I'm going to do is I want to publish the form. And also, I want to show you, Philip mentioned earlier, and he touched base with Nintex Live. So what Nintex Live does, when we publish the form, it obviously will get published back to our SharePoint intranet. However, when we publish it to SharePoint Live, this gets published to a Nintex cloud. And basically people or staff which are outside of the office and don't have access to your intranet, they can actually submit forms going to this specific Nintex Live link, so they can submit requests outside of the organization. So I'll just do the publish. Okay, so we want to change it to publish to live as well. Okay, we want to do anonymous access. Okay, I'm going to publish now. Once we publish the form, we will be presented with window which will show us the link to the external access to the form as well. So I just want to quickly show you how that works. Okay, so this is what you would be presented if you're outside of your organization. So you can still submit the form, and once you submit it, it will appear in our SharePoint list. Okay, so if I click new, now you will see the difference opposed to the traditional SharePoint list, and now we have got our Nintex form. Okay, so that's pretty much it from the Intex demo, live demo, and I will hand it back to Philip.
Okay, thank you, Pavel. That was great. And one of the things that really is highlighted to me is that how easy it is to create forms in Intex as opposed to what it might have been you might have had to do in native SharePoint. And I think that's one of the key things that people really love about it. It's quick, it's easy to create, easy to maintain, and really doesn't require coding, which is fantastic. And that library of components on the left-hand side as you're designing your forms and your workflows is a real benefit, so you can just drag and drop things. So, just a moment, I'll come on back down to the presentation. So, one of the things that, just very quickly, a little bit of a plug for our company, is a white partner with Brennan IT. We're an Intex partner, one of the few in Australia. We've got 20 years experience as an IT company with over 300 staff, so we're well established. We've got dedicated teams across multiple locations, so we can come face to face and help you with the consulting and understanding of your business requirements. And we've got a proven implementation successes across a wide range of industries. So that's just a little short item there. And I suppose the next aspect is to answer some of these questions that we've come through on your instant messaging. If you've got any more, please send them through. And what we'll do is we'll start off with the first. Can Nintex be used for O365? So the answer to that is a definite yes. With your O365 subscription, you will have SharePoint Online, and Nintex has a O365 version, and it's available for you definitely. And I think even on the on-premise environments, I think Nintex goes back as far as SharePoint 2007. It has a version for SharePoint 2010 and 13, and I'm sure for the upcoming new version of SharePoint, I think it's SharePoint 2016, they will have a version of that for on-premise as well. So definitely a lot of flexibility there. The interesting next question was, who is the suitable person to use the tool in an organisation? So that's an interesting one. And I might actually hand to Pavel, if that's okay, Pavel. So you've had a bit of experience working with client organisations.
Okay, so yeah, who is this suitable person? So look, I suggest it doesn't necessarily need to be a technical person. Obviously, I do use Nintex myself. I'm a technical person. However, for example, here within Brennan, we as a developers don't use Nintex because we have got a staff who basically manage the workflows and the forms, and that could be an operations manager or someone like that. So not necessarily a technical person. The Nintex, you can see, is designed for non-technical people. Obviously, there will be a little bit of time required for skilling up, but there's a great help for that, and it's literally a plug-and-play tool. So yeah, basically, literally anyone within the business, I would say operations manager is very suitable for such a tool, so not necessarily technical staff.
The only other aspect that I would add to that, or comment that I often talk to clients about when they ask that question, is that you probably want someone who's an advanced Microsoft Office user, someone who's not afraid of technology, someone who's already using Excel and doing the monthly reports in Excel and doing graphs and the more advanced features. So if someone's not afraid of technology, they're an advanced user, they're not afraid to get in and have a go, they're the sort of people that you want. And I think that's one of the best things about Nintex, is that businesses change, workflows change, and you need to be able to adapt to that quickly. Now, historically, when it was all workflows were all coded, you had to come to a company like us and get technical people to change the code. But now your operations style people can log into Nintex and change the workflow process and keep it up to date, keep it relevant. And I think that's one of the key things that people like to see. Okay, the next question. So what I'm going to, there's another question here. What does it matter what version of SharePoint you have? I think we've already answered that. SharePoint 2007 onwards for on-premise, and SharePoint Online as part of our O365 environment. How much per user, per license? I think that's probably something that we'd encourage you to hold on until we get to the next slide, and you can see how to access our special offer we've got. So we'll answer that one in a moment. And the pricing is done. It's a different model for on-premise as it is to O365. So send us through your requirements, how many users, how many workflows, and whether you're on-premise or whether you're in the O365 environment, and we can get you a quote in no time. Okay. Now, the next question. So what I've got here is a couple of technical questions I might hand to Pavel, and he'll answer those.
Okay, so the next question was how much can you change the format of the email notifications? So it is very flexible. It's basically HTML-based email template, so there is no limitation. So whatever you can do in a standard email, that can be done within Intex forms as well. And the next technical one is, do Nintex forms support drag and drop to attach files? So I assume that's within the form, so that still would be, I think, the traditional, browse and look for your file. So I don't think that this doesn't support that sort of functionality. The drag and drop is generally, the built-in SharePoint technology, which you can do within the list, but not in the form. Okay, so.
Okay. All right, so I've just been handed a bunch of other questions from Eileen, our able assistant here, who's collating all the questions coming through. So let's have a look here. So we've got another question on pricing. I think I've answered that one. Now, what I might do is, let's have a look. Do Nintex forms support digital signatures? If not, do you need, is it foresee a need, or do you foresee a need for them? Okay, so digital signatures, how that works within Nintex is that Nintex have a partnership with DocuSign, and you can use other digital signature tool sets, but the DocuSign is a fairly recent one, and you can look on the Nintex website around that, or you can contact us and we'll have one of our consultants assist you with that. And it's an integrated solution that works really, really well. So if you do need digital signatures, we can assist you with that. Okay, another question is, typically, would Nintex workflows and forms be offered to all site designers? That's a question about the different users that would have it. So let's, I don't know if...
I think Philip, you've covered it earlier when in the previous question, when the question was who is the most suitable person to use those. Again, I would probably refer to that. Obviously, it depends how many site designers. Obviously, it should be someone who is responsible for the Nintex forms and workflows. So generally, it's one person, and then depending on the size of your organization, they might distribute some of the tasks to the site designers as well. Again, there is a bit of skilling up required. So yeah, look, anyone could use that within the organization, just to make sure you keep your forms and workflows nice and tidy. Then I would have one person who looks after all that, and they can distribute some of the tasks across the organization. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, the next question is, can we write code in Intex?
Okay, yes. So look, Nintex is designed not to use code. I've used Nintex myself quite often, and I have designed very complex workflows and still didn't need to use code. However, to answer the question, yes, you can extend Intex to use code, but that would be for some very, very complex workflows, I can imagine.
Okay, we've got another question around Nintex live forms being hosted by Nintex, which they are, and if so, how is Nintex connected to the on-premise SharePoint? So we're getting into a rather technical aspect there. So what I might do is I might leave that one for later, and we can you can contact us individually and we can talk to you directly around that, or if there is information we can share on our blog, we'll post that for you. Okay, so is there a permissions area for access to Nintex?
Okay, so Nintex is natively, once you install the Nintex, I'm talking about either on-premise or Office 365. So it's seamlessly installed in your SharePoint. So obviously designers would have access, or the site owners will have access to design the forms or workflows. So it does have a permissions wrapped up around the Nintex. So not anyone can update forms or the design side of things.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. Okay. Pricing, we've talked about that before. Let's see what else we've got on the list here. So where is the data hosted with Nintex? Okay.
So there would be, so Nintex Live is basically, it's an Nintex cloud. So yeah, wherever the Nintex cloud is based, which I don't know out of my head, but I can find out. So it would be basically hosted in Nintex private cloud, yeah.
Okay, so extending that to the, let's say you've got Nintex on SharePoint on-premise, so you don't use Nintex Live, so then I would assume that the Nintex forms and everything is all part of the SharePoint database, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yep, Pavel's nodding his head there. And likewise, if you're using a SharePoint Online as part of your O365, and you're using the forms and workflows, I would assume it would be part of the SharePoint Online database. That's correct. Okay, very good. Well, thanks for those questions. I don't think we got to all of them, so we'll do our best to, and we're running out of time, so we'll do our best to answer those online for you. And if you've got anything you specifically want to ask about from a technical perspective, you can always contact us. Now, hopefully you've all been interested in our special offer we've managed to arrange with Nintex. So what happens next? Well, because you're attendees of this webinar, you get you're eligible for a 10% off all Nintex licensing, and that's going to be up until the end of October. So tomorrow morning, you'll receive an email from Brennan IT, so look out for it, and it will it'll contain all of the details for today's presentation. We're recording it, so you can share that recording with other people online, and details of how to claim your 10% discount. So yeah, great opportunity there. Hope you make use of it. If you do want a quote as to the pricing, all we really need is details of your SharePoint environment, whether it's O365, whether it's on-premise and what version, and then how many users you've got, how many staff, and then how many workflows you think you'll be creating, let's say in the first 12 months. All right, so with that information we'll be able to turn a quote around for you pretty quickly. So on that note, a big thank you from Pavel and myself, and thanks for joining us, and we'll hope to see you again at one of the many Brennan IT events, and I'm sure there'll be another follow-up Nintex webinar later in the year or early next year. Thanks very much.